He fell in love with the waitress who saved his son from an accident, but later discovered she was running from a dangerous past. The high-pitched screech of tires skidding on asphalt ripped through the air of the busy main street in Ashland and Oregon. Nathan Hawthorne felt his heart stop for an instant when he saw his 5-year-old son, Lucas, frozen in the middle of the crosswalk, his eyes wide with fear, fixed on the rapidly approaching headlights. "Lucas!" Nathan screamed, his legs paralyzed with terror. In a blur of movement, a figure emerged from the sidewalk, hurtling towards the boy. Nathan barely had time to register the olive-green uniform and white apron before the woman grabbed Lucas, rolling him out of the way of the speeding car. The vehicle whizzed past them, leaving behind only the echo of a horn and the acrid smell of burning rubber. Nathan ran towards his son, his heart hammering against his ribs. As he approached, he saw Lucas in the woman's arms, both panting but unharmed. His son's savior was young, probably in her early 20s, with brown hair and a disheveled ponytail and amber eyes that shone with adrenaline and relief. "Are you all right?" Nathan asked, his voice trembling. The woman nodded, releasing Lucas, who immediately ran into his father's arms. Nathan hugged him tightly, tears threatening to fall. "Dad, I'm so sorry." Lucas sobbed against his chest. "I just wanted to get my ball." Nathan stroked his son's hair, unable to find words. When he finally managed to pull himself together, he turned to the woman who was still sitting on the sidewalk, watching them with an expression of relief mixed with something Nathan couldn't decipher. Fear, perhaps. "I don't know how to thank you," he said, holding out his hand to help her up. "You saved my son's life." She accepted the help, getting up with a slight groan. "It was nothing," she replied, her soft voice contrasting with the intensity of the moment before. Anyone would have done the same. Nathan shook his head, still holding her hand. "No, not anyone. What you did was extraordinary." He noticed a badge on her uniform. "Aria? Is that your name?" She nodded, gently removing her hand from his. "Yes, Aria Winters. I work in the cafe over there." She pointed to a small establishment across the street. Nathan followed her gaze, noticing for the first time the vintage sign that read, "Cafe Serenade." He knew the place by sight, but had never been inside. "I'm Nathan, and this is Lucas," he introduced himself, putting his hand on his son's shoulder. "We've just moved to Ashland. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been here." Aria smiled, but Nathan noticed a shadow pass across her eyes. "Well, the important thing is that everything is fine now," she said, straightening her apron. "I should get back to work." "Wait," Nathan called as she turned to leave. "Please let me do something to say thank you. Dinner, perhaps?" Aria hesitated, biting her lower lip. "It's not necessary, really." "I insist," Nathan pressed gently. "It's the least I can do." After a moment's consideration, Aria nodded reluctantly. "All right, but nothing too elaborate, please." Nathan smiled, feeling an inexplicable sense of relief at her acceptance. "How about tomorrow night? I know a great Italian restaurant not far from here." "Tomorrow's fine," Aria agreed, a small smile curving her lips. "I'll meet you here at 7. Nathan nodded, watching her cross the street back to the cafe. There was something about her, a mixture of strength and vulnerability, that intrigued him. He picked Lucas up, feeling the comforting weight of his son in his arms. "Let's go home, champ," he said, kissing the boy's forehead. "I think we've had enough excitement for one day." As they walked home, Nathan couldn't get Aria out of his thoughts. The way she had thrown herself into saving Lucas without hesitation, the gratitude mixed with apprehension in her eyes. There was a story there. He could feel it, and for some reason, he found himself eager to find out more. What Nathan didn't know was that this chance encounter was about to change the course of their lives in ways he could never have imagined. Meanwhile, across the street, Aria watched father and son walk away, a knot of anxiety forming in her stomach. She had promised herself not to get involved with anyone, to remain invisible. But now, looking at Nathan and Lucas, she felt something she hadn't experienced for a long time. Hope. With a sigh, Aria returned to the cafe, knowing that her life was about to get complicated. What she didn't know was how much, or whether she would be prepared to face the ghosts of her past when they inevitably caught up with her. As the sun began to set over Ashland, casting long shadows across the main street, the fate of 3 lives had been irrevocably intertwined, and the story that would unfold over the coming weeks would test the limits of love, courage, and redemption in ways that none of them could have predicted. Night fell over Ashland as Nathan adjusted his tie for the 3rd time, his reflection in the mirror revealing a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. Lucas, sitting on his father's bed, swung his legs thoughtfully. "Dad, why are you so nervous? It's just a thank you dinner, right?" Nathan paused, surprised by his son's insight. "You're right, champ. It's just dinner." But as he said this, he knew it wasn't the whole truth. There was something about Arya that intrigued him, a complexity that went beyond the heroic act of the day before. "Is Grandma staying with me tonight?" Lucas asked, changing the subject. "Yes, she should be here any minute," Nathan replied, grateful for the distraction. As if summoned, the doorbell rang. Minutes later, after the usual instructions and a tight hug from Lucas, Nathan found himself driving into the city center. Café Serenade came into view, and with it, the slender figure of Arya, waiting on the sidewalk. She looked different without her café uniform. A simple navy blue dress hugged her curves, and her brown hair fell in soft waves over her shoulders. But what struck Nathan most was the tension in her eyes, a vigilance that seemed out of place on a quiet Oregon evening. "You look beautiful," Nathan said as he got out of the car to greet her. Arya smiled, but the gesture didn't quite reach her eyes. "Thank you. You look great, too." The Italian restaurant, Il Giardino, was only a few blocks away. As they walked, Nathan noticed how Arya often looked over her shoulder, her eyes scanning the almost empty streets. "Is everything all right?" he asked softly. Arya seemed surprised, as if she had momentarily forgotten that she was not alone. "Oh, yes. Sorry. It's just a habit, I guess." Nathan nodded, deciding not to press the issue for the time being. When they arrived at the restaurant, they were greeted by the aroma of fresh herbs and tomato sauce. The maitre d' led them to a discreet table at the back, surrounded by trellises covered in artificial ivy, creating an intimate atmosphere. After placing their orders, an uncomfortable silence hung over the table. Nathan, determined to break the ice, decided to start with something light. "So, Arya, how long have you been working at Café Serenade?" "About 6 months, she replied, her fingers playing nervously with her napkin. "It's a nice place. The owners are kind." Nathan noticed the hesitation in her voice. "And before that, are you from Ashland?" Arya seemed to shrink slightly. "Not really. I've moved around a lot in the last few years. Ashland is just my most recent stop." Nathan's curiosity was piqued, but he could sense Arya's reluctance to elaborate. He decided to change the subject. "Well, as a newcomer, I can tell you that Ashland seems like a great place to settle down. Lucas and I moved here just a month ago, after—" He hesitated, the pain still fresh. "After I lost my wife, Claire, in a car accident." Arya's eyes softened with compassion. "Nathan, I'm so sorry. That must have been terrible for you and Lucas." Nathan nodded, feeling the familiar twinge of pain. "It was hard. It still is. But moving here, starting over, it's helped. Lucas is adapting well to the new school, and my job as an architect allows me to work from home most of the time." Arya smiled gently. "You seem very close. Lucas is a lucky little boy to have such a devoted father." "Thank you," Nathan said, feeling a warmth in his chest. "What about you? Do you have family nearby?" Arya's expression tightened again. "No, I don't have any family. It's complicated." Before Nathan could answer, the waiter arrived with their plates. The conversation flowed more easily as they ate, moving on to lighter topics such as favorite movies and places they would like to visit one day. It was only when they were enjoying dessert, a decadent tiramisu, that Nathan decided to approach the elephant in the room. "Arya," he began carefully, "I don't want to sound nosy, but is something bothering you? You seem vigilant." Arya froze, her spoon hanging in the air. For a moment, Nathan thought she would simply get up and leave. But then, with a deep sigh, she put the spoon back on the plate. I shouldn't be here, Nathan," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "I shouldn't be getting involved with anyone. It's dangerous." Nathan's heart raced. "Dangerous? Arya, what's going on?" She looked around nervously before leaning closer. "I'm running away from someone dangerous. That's why I moved so much. And now I've put you and Lucas in danger just by being here." Nathan felt a wave of protection and concern wash over him. "Who's after you? We could go to the police." "No!" Arya exclaimed, a little too loudly, attracting glances from nearby tables. "Lower down," she continued. "No, the police can't help. No one can. I should go. Leave Ashland before it's too late." Nathan reached for her hand on the table, surprising them both with the gesture. "Arya, look at me. You saved my son's life. Let me help you now." Tears glistened in Arya's eyes. "You don't understand, Nathan. The man I'm running from, he's ruthless, and he has connections everywhere. I can't risk putting you and Lucas in danger. And I can't let you face this alone," Nathan replied firmly. "Whatever it is, we can find a solution. Together." The moment was interrupted by the shattering sound of breaking glass. Arya jumped to her feet, her eyes scanning the restaurant in panic. "I have to go," she said hurriedly, grabbing her bag. Nathan stood up too, determined not to let her disappear. "Arya, wait!" But she was already heading for the exit, moving quickly between the tables. Nathan threw some notes on the table and ran after her, catching up with her on the sidewalk in front of the restaurant. "Arya, please," he begged, holding her arm gently. "Don't run away. Let me help." She turned to him, her eyes a mixture of fear and something else, something Nathan couldn't quite decipher. "Nathan, she began, but her words were cut off by the sound of screeching tires on the nearby street. A black SUV turned the corner at high speed, its headlights illuminating Arya and Nathan. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Nathan saw the terror in Arya's eyes, heard the roar of the approaching engine, felt the adrenaline coursing through his veins. In an instant, he made a decision. Grabbing Arya's hand, Nathan pulled her away from the street, running towards a nearby alley. The SUV whizzed past them, braking sharply a few meters ahead. "Come with me," Nathan said, his voice firm despite the fear he felt. "I know a safe place." Arya hesitated for just a second before nodding, squeezing Nathan's hand as they ran through the darkness of the alley. Behind them, doors slammed and voices shouted, but Nathan refused to look back. As they ran through the Ashland night, fleeing an unknown danger, Nathan knew that his life had changed irrevocably. What had begun as a simple thank you dinner had turned into something much more dangerous and complex. And yet, with Arya at his side and the mystery of his past unfolding, Nathan couldn't help but feel a mixture of fear and excitement. Whatever danger awaited them, he was determined to face it. For Lucas, for Arya, and for a future that suddenly seemed full of unexpected possibilities. Nathan's heart hammered against his ribs as he and Arya ran through the dark streets of Ashland. The sound of heavy footsteps and harsh voices echoed not far behind them, propelling them forward with a desperate urgency. "This way," Nathan gasped, pulling Arya into a side street. They moved quickly, zigzagging through alleyways, Nathan's familiarity with the city proving invaluable. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, they arrived at a small red brick building, hidden between two larger stores. Nathan quickly typed in a code on a panel next to the door, his hands shaking slightly. "My office," he explained, as he pushed Arya inside just as the door opened with a click. "It should be safe for now." Once inside, Nathan locked the door and activated the alarm system. The office was a cozy space, with drawing boards, architectural models, and blueprints scattered around. A small seating area with a sofa and a small kitchen occupied one corner. Arya leaned against the wall, breathing heavily, her eyes scanning the room with a mixture of relief and apprehension. Nathan watched her for a moment, noticing how she seemed both fragile and resilient. "I think we lost them," he finally said, breaking the tense silence. "Are you okay?" Arya nodded, although her body was still as tense as a violin string. "Nathan, I'm sorry. I never meant to involve you in this." Nathan approached her, hesitantly. "Arya, who were those men? What's going on?" She closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering her courage. When she opened them again, they were filled with a resigned determination. "Sit down," she said softly. "It's a long story." Nathan guided her to the sofa, taking a seat next to her. Arya took a deep breath before beginning. "My real name isn't Arya Winters. It's Sophia Reeves." She paused, studying Nathan's reaction. When he said nothing, only nodding encouragingly, she continued. 3 years ago, I was a promising lawyer in Chicago, working for one of the largest firms in the city. It was there that I met Marcus Blackwood. The name was said with a mixture of bitterness and fear that made Nathan shiver. Marcus was charming, powerful, and, as I discovered too late, completely unscrupulous. He was one of the firm's senior partners, known for his connections with high-profile clients. What I didn't know was that many of these clients were actually part of a sophisticated criminal network. Nathan felt his stomach sink. "And you found out?" Arya, or Sophia, nodded sadly. "I was working on a seemingly routine case when I found discrepancies in some financial documents. The more I dug, the dirtier the situation became. Money laundering, extortion, even murder." She trembled visibly, and Nathan resisted the urge to wrap his arms around her. When I confronted Marcus, naively thinking that he didn't know, well, let's just say that his reaction made it clear that he was at the center of it all. He offered me a choice: join them or disappear, permanently. "So you ran away," Nathan concluded softly. Sophia nodded. "I took everything I could carry and ran, but not before I made copies of all the incriminating documents I found. That's why they keep hunting me. It's not just about silencing a witness, it's about recovering evidence that could bring down a criminal empire." Nathan processed the information, his mind spinning with the implications. "And you've been alone all this time, running from town to town." "It had to be that way," she replied, her voice breaking slightly. "I couldn't risk involving anyone else, until yesterday." She looked at Nathan, her eyes filling with unshed tears. "I couldn't let that car hit Lucas. I just couldn't." Nathan felt a wave of emotion wash over him. Without thinking, he reached for Sophia's hand, squeezing it gently. "You saved my son, and now we're going to find a way to save you." Sophia looked down at their entwined hands, a complex expression crossing her face. "Nathan, you don't understand. These men, they're relentless. They won't stop. And now that they've seen you with me, you're in danger too. Then we'll face this together," Nathan said with a firmness that surprised him. "You're not alone anymore, Sophia." The sound of his real name seemed to break her. Tears began to run down her cheeks, and Nathan pulled her into a tight hug. She clung to him, her body shaking with suppressed sobs. For several minutes they stayed like this, finding comfort in each other's presence. When Sophia finally pulled away, her eyes were red, but there was a spark of hope in them that hadn't been there before. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice hoarse. Nathan thought for a moment. "First, we need to make sure Lucas is safe. Then we'll need help. You said you have evidence." Sophia nodded. "Scattered in various secure locations. I've never kept everything together, just to be safe." "Well, I think it's time to put it all together," Nathan said, an idea beginning to form in his mind. "I know someone who can help us, a childhood friend who now works for the FBI. If we can get this evidence to him—" "It would be risky," Sophia warned. "Marcus has connections everywhere, even in federal agencies." "I trust this guy with my life," Nathan assured her. "And now, with yours too." Sophia studied him for a long moment before nodding slowly. "Okay, let's try it your way." Nathan stood up, holding out his hand to help her to her feet. "First, we need to get out of here. My mom is with Lucas, and we need to get to them before anyone else does." As they prepared to leave, Nathan cautiously checked out the window. The street seemed deserted, but he knew that the apparent calm could be deceptive. "Let's use the back exit," he said, guiding Sophia to a door hidden behind a bookcase. "There's a parking lot out back where I leave my spare car. Hopefully no one has noticed it yet." As they crept through the darkness towards the car, Nathan couldn't help but feel a mixture of fear and excitement. In less than 48 hours, his life had been turned upside down. He was about to get involved in something much bigger and more dangerous than he had ever imagined. And yet, looking at Sophia, no longer the mysterious Arya, but a flesh and blood woman with a history of courage and sacrifice, Nathan knew he couldn't turn back. Whatever the future held, they would face it together. As the car glided silently out of the parking lot, Nathan made a silent promise. He would protect Lucas and Sophia, no matter what the cost. And together, they would find a way to end the threat of Marcus Blackwood once and for all. The Ashland night enveloped them as they drove, the shadows hiding both danger and hope. The game had changed, and now it was time for Nathan Hawthorne to show what he was made of. Nathan's car snaked through the suburban streets of Ashland, the streetlights casting intermittent shadows over the tense faces of its occupants. Sophia kept her eyes fixed on the road ahead, her mind clearly processing the night's events. "Turn right at the next one," Nathan instructed softly, breaking the silence. "My mother's house is at the end of this street." As they approached, Nathan felt a knot forming in his stomach. The thought of putting his family in danger tormented him, but he knew he had no choice. Lucas needed to be safe. They parked a short distance from the house, watching carefully for any sign of suspicious activity. The street was silent, only the occasional bark of a dog in the distance disturbing the stillness of the night. "Looks safe," Sophia murmured, her trained eyes scanning the area. "But we can't be careless." Nathan nodded, admiring her caution. "I'll go in first. Wait here and keep an eye out. If anything looks wrong, I'll be sure to let you know," she added, her eyes meeting his with an intensity that made his heart race. With one last look at Sophia, Nathan got out of the car and headed for the house. Every step seemed to echo in the silent night. Arriving at the door, he used his key, entering silently. The house was dark, except for a dim light coming from the living room. Nathan found his mother, Evelyn, dozing in her favorite armchair, an open book on her lap. He gently woke her up. "Nathan," Evelyn murmured, blinking sleepily. "What's wrong? You look upset." "Mom, we have to go," Nathan said urgently, his voice low. "Where's Lucas?" Sensing the seriousness in her son's voice, Evelyn immediately became alert. "He's asleep in the guest room." "Nathan, what's going on?" "I'll explain everything, but right now we need to move quickly and quietly," he replied, already heading towards the room where Lucas was sleeping. Minutes later, with Lucas still drowsy in his arms and Evelyn following close behind, Nathan left the house. He signaled discreetly to Sophia, who got out of the car to help. "Who is she?" Evelyn whispered, confused and worried. "This is Sophia," Nathan replied as he put Lucas in the back seat. She saved Lucas' life yesterday, and now we need to help her." Before Evelyn could ask any more questions, Nathan guided her to the car. Sophia was already behind the wheel, the engine running and ready to go. Once everyone was on board, Sophia accelerated, maneuvering deftly through the residential streets. Nathan watched through the rearview mirror, looking for any sign of pursuit. "Where are we going?" Sophia asked, her eyes alternating between the road and the rearview mirror. Nathan hesitated for a moment before answering. "Out of town. I know an isolated chalet in the mountains. It belonged to my grandfather. We should be safe there for a while." As they drove into the mountains, Nathan finally had the chance to explain the situation to his mother. Evelyn listened in silence, her face a mixture of shock and concern. "Oh, Nathan," she sighed when he had finished. "What kind of mess have you gotten yourself into?" "I'm sorry, Mrs. Hawthorne," Sophia interjected, her voice laden with guilt. "It was never my intention to put your family in danger." Evelyn looked at Sophia, her eyes softening. "Darling, You saved my grandson. And now you're risking everything to protect us. There's no need to apologize." Silence fell over the car, broken only by the soft breathing of Lucas, who had fallen asleep again. Nathan looked at his son, a wave of love and protection washing over him. He would do anything to keep Lucas safe. After almost 2 hours of driving along winding and increasingly remote roads, they finally reached the cottage. It was a rustic but solid structure, hidden among tall pines and overlooking a deep valley. "It's beautiful," Sophia murmured as they climbed out of the car, her eyes scanning the serene landscape. Nathan carried Lucas inside, placing him gently on one of the beds. Evelyn soon retired to another room, exhausted by the journey and the night's revelations. Alone in the main room of the chalet, Nathan and Sophia finally had a moment to breathe. The silence of the mountain was almost tangible after the tension of the last few hours. "What do we do now?" Sophia asked, sitting down heavily on a worn but comfortable sofa. Nathan joined her, feeling the weight of recent events. "First, we rest. In the morning, I'll get in touch with my friend from the FBI. His name is Daniel Reeves, no relation," he added with a small smile. Sophia nodded, a slight blush coloring her cheeks at the sound of his last name. "Nathan, I can't thank you enough. You're risking everything for me." Nathan looked her in the eye, feeling a connection that went beyond their extraordinary circumstances. "You did the same for Lucas. Besides," he hesitated, choosing his words carefully, "there's something about you, Sophia. Something that makes me want to fight, not just against Blackwood, but for a future. A future that includes you." Sophia's eyes widened at the admission, a mixture of hope and fear dancing in their depths. "Nathan, Her words were interrupted by the sound of small footsteps. Lucas appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes sleepily. "Daddy," he called, his voice small and confused. "Where are we?" Nathan stood up quickly, walking over to his son. "Hey, champ. We're on a little adventure, remember? This is Great-Grandpa's cottage." Lucas looked around, his eyes landing on Sophia. A small smile lit up his sleepy face. "Hi, Arya. Have you come on our adventure too?" Sophia exchanged a quick glance with Nathan before approaching, kneeling down to be at Lucas' eye level. "Hi, Lucas. Yes, I'm here for the adventure. And you know what? My real name is Sophia. Arya was a special name I used sometimes." Lucas considered this for a moment before shrugging with the innocence of a child. "Okay, Sophia is a nice name too." Nathan felt his heart warm at the interaction. Despite the danger surrounding them, at that moment they seemed almost like a family. "How about we go back to bed, huh?" Nathan suggested gently. "We've got a big day ahead of us tomorrow." While Nathan took Lucas back to his room, Sophia remained in the living room, her thoughts a whirlwind. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to feel a glimmer of real hope, not just of escaping Blackwood, but of finding something she had long thought she had lost: a home. Back in the living room, Nathan found Sophia looking out of the window, the moonlight bathing her face in a soft glow. "He fell asleep quickly," Nathan said softly, joining her. "Children have an incredible ability to adapt." Sophia turned to him, her eyes shining with restrained emotion. "Nathan, what you said before, about a future, do you really think it's possible, after all this?" Nathan stepped forward, taking her hands in his. "I believe it is. It won't be easy, but together, I think we can face anything." The moment was interrupted by the distant sound of a branch breaking in the forest. Instantly, they both became alert, the reality of their situation returning with full force. "Probably just an animal," Nathan muttered, but his eyes scanned the darkness outside cautiously. Sophia nodded, but her posture remained tense. "We should set up watch shifts. We can't let our guard down, not even here." Nathan reluctantly agreed. As they prepared for the long night ahead, they both knew that the real challenge was yet to come. The morning would bring not only the promise of a new day, but the beginning of their fight against Blackwood and his criminal empire. In the quiet of the mountain night, with Lucas sleeping peacefully and Evelyn resting in the next room, Nathan and Sophia found comfort in each other's presence. Despite the danger surrounding them, there was a growing sense of purpose and togetherness. The dawn would bring new challenges, but for the first time in a long time, neither Nathan nor Sophia felt alone in facing them. Together, they would take the first steps towards a future that, only days ago, neither of them could have imagined. Dawn at the mountain chalet brought with it a false sense of tranquility. Nathan watched through the window as the first rays of sunlight painted the sky pink and orange, contrasting dramatically with the tension that hung over the occupants of the house. Sophia emerged from the kitchen, 2 steaming mugs in her hands. "Coffee," she said, offering one to Nathan. "I thought we might need it." Nathan accepted the mug with a grateful smile, noticing how Sophia seemed more at ease in the cottage kitchen than he had expected. "Thanks. How did you sleep?" "Honestly, barely," she admitted, taking a sip of her own coffee. "Every sound made me think that Blackwood had found us." Nathan nodded, understanding. "I know, but we're safe here, at least for now. And today, we're going to start fighting back." Just then, Lucas entered the room, still in his pajamas, his hair tousled from sleep. His eyes lit up when he saw Sophia. "Good morning, Sophia. Did you make pancakes? I smell pancakes." Sophia laughed, the tension in her shoulders visibly easing. "Yes, I did. I thought we all deserved a special breakfast today." As Lucas ran excitedly into the kitchen, Nathan looked at Sophia with a mixture of surprise and admiration. "You didn't have to do that," she shrugged, a slight blush coloring her cheeks. "I wanted to. You've done so much for me. It's the least I can do." Breakfast passed in an almost normal atmosphere, with Lucas chattering about the adventures he wanted to have in the mountains, and Evelyn listening patiently. Nathan and Sophia exchanged occasional glances, a silent understanding passing between them. After the meal, with Lucas entertained by a board game with Evelyn, Nathan and Sophia retired to the makeshift office they had set up in one of the smaller rooms. "It's time," Nathan said, picking up his phone. "I'll call Daniel." Sophia nodded, the anxiety evident in her eyes. Nathan dialed the number, putting the phone on speaker. After a few rings, a deep voice answered. "Reeves. Dan, it's Nathan. Remember when you said I could call you if I ever needed a huge, possibly illegal and definitely dangerous favor?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Nathan, what the hell is going on?" Nathan took a deep breath. "It's a long story, but in short, I'm holed up in a chalet in the mountains with my son, my mother, and a woman who's on the run from a criminal organization led by a corrupt lawyer called Marcus Blackwood." The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Daniel spoke, his voice a mixture of concern and determination. "Start from the beginning. Don't omit anything." For the next hour, Nathan and Sophia took turns telling Daniel the whole story. The FBI agent listened attentively, asking occasional questions and sometimes cursing quietly. "This is big, Nathan," Daniel said when they had finished. "Blackwood is not an unknown name to us, but we've never gotten anything concrete against him. If what Sophia has is legitimate—" "It is legitimate," Sophia interrupted firmly. "I've seen the documents, Daniel. They detail a network of corruption that stretches across several cities, involving politicians, judges, and even law enforcement officers." Daniel sighed heavily. "Okay, here's what we're going to do. I can't take official action without concrete evidence, guy, but I can start assembling a trustworthy team. In the meantime, you need to recover those documents." "But how?" Nathan asked. "Sophia spread them out over several locations for safekeeping." "And that could be our advantage," Daniel replied. "Blackwood probably doesn't know that. If we can recover the evidence without alerting him, we'll have a chance of taking him by surprise." Sophia bit her lip thoughtfully. "The closest place I've hidden some documents is in Portland, in a bank vault under a false name." Nathan looked at her, surprised. "Portland? That's risky. It's a big city, lots of places for Blackwood to ambush us. But also lots of places to hide," Sophia argued. "And it's our best chance to start building the case against him." Daniel agreed. She's right, Nathan. It's risky, but necessary. I can provide some discreet support in Portland, but you'll have to do most of it on your own. Nathan looked at Sophia, seeing the determination in her eyes. He knew there was no dissuading her. Okay, he finally said. Let's go to Portland. They spent the next hour outlining a plan with Daniel. When they finally hung up, Nathan felt simultaneously exhausted and energized. Let's really do this, he muttered, half to himself. Sophia put a hand on his arm, the touch sending an electric current through his skin. It's not too late to back out, Nathan. You can take Lucas and Evelyn somewhere safe. Let Daniel and me deal with it. Nathan covered her hand with his eyes meeting hers. No way. We're in this together, remember? The moment was interrupted by a soft knock on the door. Lucas entered, his eyes shining with excitement. Dad, Sophia, Grandma said we're going on a trip. Can we go fishing when we get there? Nathan and Sophia exchanged a quick glance before Nathan knelt down to be at his son's eye level. Maybe, champ. But first, we need to have a serious talk, okay? About why we're taking this trip. As Nathan gently explained the situation to Lucas, omitting the scariest details, Sophia watched, amazed at the patience and love evident in the interaction between father and son. She felt a twinge of something, nostalgia perhaps, as she thought of the family she never had. Lucas, surprisingly, seemed to accept the explanation with a maturity beyond his years. So we're like secret superheroes, he asked, his eyes wide. Nathan laughed softly. Something like that, champ. But remember, it has to be our secret, okay? Lucas nodded solemnly, making a zipper gesture with his lips. He then turned to Sophia, taking her hand. Don't worry, Sophia. Daddy and I will protect you from the bad men. Sophia felt tears forming in her eyes. She knelt down, hugging Lucas tightly. Thank you, Lucas. You're already protecting me more than you know. That night, as they prepared for the journey ahead, the chalet was filled with a nervous but determined energy. Evelyn, having been fully briefed on the plan, was busy preparing supplies for the journey. Nathan checked and rechecked the routes, looking for safe paths and stopping points. Sophia found a quiet moment on the balcony, watching the sun set behind the mountains. Nathan joined her, offering her a blanket which she gratefully accepted. I'm scared, Nathan, she admitted softly. Not just for me, but for all of you. What if something goes wrong? What if Blackwood... Nathan interrupted her gently, turning her to face him. Hey, look at me. It's going to be okay. Not because it will be easy, but because we have something that Blackwood doesn't have. What? Sophia asked, her voice almost a whisper. Each other, Nathan replied, his hand gently caressing her cheek. A family. Something worth fighting for. Sophia leaned into the touch, feeling, perhaps for the first time in years, that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The danger was still there, waiting for them beyond the mountains. But in that moment, with the warmth of Nathan's hand on her face and the distant sound of Lucas' laughter coming from inside the house, Sophia allowed herself to believe that they could win. As the last ray of sunlight disappeared over the horizon, Nathan and Sophia stood on the balcony, drawing strength from each other for the challenges ahead. The journey ahead would be dangerous, full of unknowns and risks, but with every passing minute, their determination only grew. Portland awaited them, and with it, the first step towards dismantling the Blackwood Empire, and perhaps building a future that none of them had dared to dream of just a few days ago. The engine of Nathan's rented SUV hummed softly as they left the mountains behind, the landscape gradually changing from dense forests to open fields. In the passenger seat, Sophia studied a map, her eyes attentive to possible alternative routes. In the back seat, Lucas slept peacefully, his head resting on Evelyn's shoulder. Still quiet? Nathan asked quietly, his eyes alternating between the road and the rearview mirror. Sophia nodded, but the tension in her shoulders was evident. For now. But we can't let our guard down. Blackwood has eyes everywhere. Her words hung in the air, a constant reminder of the danger that surrounded them. Nathan reached out, took Sophia's hand and squeezed it gently. The gesture, although simple, conveyed more than words could express. After a few hours of driving, they stopped at a small gas station to refuel and stretch their legs. While Nathan filled up, Sophia took Lucas to the bathroom, Evelyn staying behind to keep an eye on the car. In the bathroom, Sophia helped Lucas wash his hands, watching him through the mirror. He looked thoughtful, more serious than a child his age should be. "Is everything all right, Lucas?" she asked softly. Lucas hesitated for a moment before answering. "Sophia, the bad men, are they going to hurt us?" Sophia's heart squeezed at the question. She knelt down, getting level with Lucas's eyes. "Hey, look at me. Your father, your grandmother and I, we're all here to protect you, and you know what." "What?" Lucas asked, his eyes wide. "You're the bravest of us all," Sophia smiled, gently nudging his nose. "And together, we're stronger than any bad man." A small smile lit up Lucas's face. He suddenly hugged Sophia, surprising her. "I like you, Sophia. Will you stay with us forever?" Sophia felt tears forming in her eyes. She hugged Lucas back, her voice soft as she replied, "I love you too, Lucas. And if it's up to me, I'll stay as long as you want me around." When they got back to the car, Nathan noticed Sophia's watery eyes, but she just shook her head with a small smile, indicating that everything was fine. He decided not to press the issue, at least not now. The journey continued, the tension increasing as they approached Portland. Nathan followed Daniel's instructions, avoiding the main highways and opting for less guarded back roads. It was during one of these isolated roads that the unexpected happened. A car suddenly appeared behind them, approaching quickly. "Nathan," Sophia warned, her eyes fixed on the rearview mirror. "I saw it," Nathan replied, his voice tense. "It could be a coincidence, but let's not risk it." He accelerated, the SUV roaring in response. The car behind them also picked up speed, confirming his fears. "Lucas, honey, get down," Evelyn instructed calmly, helping her grandson hide on the floor between the seats. Nathan maneuvered deftly around the bends in the road, his mind racing with possible exits. Sophia typed frantically on her cell phone, sending a coded message to Daniel. Suddenly, the pursuing car pulled up alongside them. Nathan caught a glimpse of the driver, a tough-looking man in a black suit, before the vehicle tried to force them off the road. "Hang on!" Nathan shouted, turning the steering wheel sharply to avoid a collision. The SUV skidded, almost going off the road, but Nathan managed to regain control. Everyone's heart was racing, adrenaline coursing through their veins. "There!" Sophia pointed to a dirt road almost hidden among the trees. Nathan turned sharply, entering the dirt road. The pursuing car drove straight past, not expecting the sudden maneuver. For a moment, they breathed a sigh of relief, but knew that the threat had not passed. They continued along the dirt road for a few minutes, the silence in the car broken only by everyone's heavy breathing and Lucas' occasional muffled sobs. "I think we've lost them," Nathan finally said, his voice still tense. Sophia nodded, but her eyes remained vigilant. "For now, but they know we're on our way to Portland. We need to change the plan." Nathan reluctantly agreed. "You're right, but how are we going to get the documents back without getting caught?" It was Evelyn who spoke up, surprising everyone. "I can go." "Mom, no," Nathan began, but Evelyn interrupted him. "Think, Nathan. They're looking for you and Sophia. No one will suspect an old lady making a withdrawal from a bank." Silence fell over the car as everyone considered Evelyn's proposal. Sophia was the first to speak. "She's right, Nathan. It's risky, but it might be our best chance." Nathan looked at his mother through the rearview mirror, seeing the determination in her eyes. He knew there was no point in arguing. "Okay," he finally gave in. "But we'll need a detailed plan. And you're not going alone, Mom." They found a small motel outside the city to spend the night and plan their next move. As Lucas finally fell asleep, exhausted by the day's events, the adults met to discuss the strategy. Sophia drew a rough map of the bank and its surroundings. "The safe is on this floor," she explained, pointing to the drawing. "The key is hidden in a book in the public library, 2 blocks away." Nathan absorbed the information, his mind working through the possibilities. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Mom, you and I will go to the bank. Sophia, you stay with Lucas in a nearby cafe from where you can watch the bank entrance. If anything looks suspicious, you'll let us know. Everyone agreed to the plan, the gravity of the situation palpable in the air. As they prepared for bed, Nathan pulled Sophia aside. "Hey," he said softly, "how are you coping with all this?" Sophia hesitated for a moment before answering. "Honestly, I'm terrified, not just for me, but for all of you, especially Lucas. He doesn't deserve to go through this." Nathan pulled her into an embrace, feeling her tremble slightly in his arms. "We'll get through this," he murmured into her hair. "Together." Sophia pulled away slightly, looking into Nathan's eyes. The intensity of the moment was palpable, the attraction between them growing by the second. Slowly, almost hesitantly, Nathan leaned in. His lips met Sophia's in a soft kiss, full of unspoken promises and hopes for the future. When they parted, Sophia leaned her forehead against Nathan's. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not giving up on me." "Never," Nathan replied fervently. That night, while everyone slept, Nathan kept watch, his thoughts a mixture of worry and determination. Tomorrow would be a crucial day. The success of his plan could mean the beginning of the end for Blackwood. Failure. He didn't even want to think about the consequences. Looking at Sophia, sleeping peacefully next to Lucas, Nathan felt a resolution forming inside him. He would protect this newly formed family, no matter the cost. Blackwood might have power and resources, but Nathan had something much stronger: love and the fierce will to fight for those he cared about. As the sun rose, they embarked on their most dangerous mission yet. Portland awaited them, with its secrets and dangers. But together, they would face whatever came, one step at a time, in the hope of a future free from the shadows of the past. The morning in Portland dawned gray and damp, the overcast sky reflecting the tension that hung over the group. Nathan parked the rented SUV a few blocks from the bank, his eyes constantly scanning the area for any sign of danger. "Does everyone remember the plan?" he asked, turning to face the others. Evelyn nodded, her expression a mixture of determination and apprehension. "I go in, do the looting as planned. You keep watch outside. And I'll stay with Lucas at the cafe around the corner," Sophia added, her hand resting protectively on the boy's shoulder. "Any suspicious movement, I'll let you know immediately." Lucas, sensing the gravity of the situation, remained silent, his large eyes switching between the adults. Nathan took a deep breath, trying to calm his nerves. "Okay, let's go. And remember, if anything goes wrong, we'll meet at the escape point we agreed on." They got out of the car, parting with tense goodbyes. Nathan watched Sophia and Lucas enter the cafe, feeling a pang in his chest. He wanted nothing more than to keep everyone together, protected, but he knew this was the best strategy. Evelyn and Nathan walked side by side towards the bench, looking to all intents and purposes like a mother and son on an ordinary morning stroll. "Nathan," Evelyn said softly, "I want you to know how proud I am of you. The man you've become, the father you are to Lucas." Nathan felt a lump in his throat. "Mom, this isn't the time to—" "This is exactly the time," she interrupted him gently. "You never know what might happen. And I want you to know that, no matter the outcome, you did the right thing by helping Sophia." They stopped in front of the bench, Nathan hugging his mother briefly. "Thank you, Mom, for everything." With one last determined look, Evelyn entered the bank, leaving Nathan outside, apparently absorbed in his phone, but in reality scanning every face, every passing car. Inside the bank, Evelyn approached the teller, her voice calm and controlled as she requested access to the safe. The clerk, a bored-looking young man, didn't even blink as he processed the request. Meanwhile, in the cafe, Sophia tried to maintain a relaxed appearance for Lucas's sake, but her eyes were constantly alert. She noticed a man sitting alone by the window, his expensive suit and stiff posture looking out of place in the relaxed atmosphere. "Lucas, darling," she said softly, "how about we go to the bathroom quickly?" The boy nodded, sensing the urgency in Sophia's voice. As soon as they entered the bathroom corridor, Sophia sent a coded message to Nathan. "Sparrow in the tree, watch out." Nathan felt his phone vibrate. Reading the message, he immediately went on high alert. His eyes scanned the street, noticing a black car parked on the other side, two suspicious-looking men sitting inside. Inside the bank, Evelyn was being taken to the vault area. Her hands were shaking slightly as she inserted the key into the designated safe. The contents, a thick envelope, were exactly as Sophia had described. Nathan, outside, saw the men from the black car get out and start to cross the street towards the bank. His heart raced. They were running out of time. In the cafe, Sophia decided they couldn't wait any longer. "Lucas, remember that spy game we talked about? It's time to play. Let's go out the back. Very quietly, okay?" Lucas nodded, his eyes wide but determined. Sophia led him through the back of the cafe and out into an alley. She sent another quick message to Nathan. "Birds flying. Rendezvous at the nest." Nathan received the message the moment he saw Evelyn coming out of the bank. Her face was pale, but she held her bag tightly. The men were only a few meters away. "Mom!" Nathan called out, as if he were just greeting her. "Are we going for a walk in the park?" Evelyn understood immediately, turning to follow Nathan in the opposite direction to the men. They walked quickly, trying not to look like they were running away. The men, realizing that something was wrong, began to follow them more openly. Nathan and Evelyn turned a corner, increasing their pace. "Nathan," Evelyn gasped, "I don't know if I can run." "Just a little longer, Mom," Nathan encouraged, taking her arm for support. They turned into another alley, Nathan's heart almost stopping when they saw that it was a dead end. The footsteps behind them grew closer. Suddenly, a van braked sharply at the entrance to the alley. The side door opened, revealing Sophia in the driver's seat. "Get in!" she shouted. Nathan practically carried Evelyn into the van. As soon as the door closed, Sophia sped off, leaving her pursuers behind. "Lucas?" Nathan asked, worried. "He's safe," Sophia replied, her eyes on the rearview mirror. "I left him with a trusted contact of Daniel's. We'll pick him up as soon as we've lost these guys." For several tense minutes, Sophia maneuvered through the streets of Portland, making sharp turns and sudden changes of direction to confuse any pursuers. Finally, when they were sure they were safe, Sophia drove into an abandoned underground parking lot. They stopped, the silence broken only by their panting breaths. "Did we make it?" Evelyn asked, her voice trembling. Nathan hugged his mother, tears of relief in his eyes. "Yes, Mom. We did it. You were amazing." Sophia turned in her seat, her eyes meeting Nathan's. "The documents?" Evelyn opened her bag, revealing the envelope. "Here," she said, handing it to Sophia. "I hope it's worth all this danger." Sophia opened the envelope with trembling hands, her eyes quickly scanning the contents. "This is it," she whispered. "Everything we need to take down Blackwood." Nathan moved to the front seat, pulling Sophia into a tight hug. "You were amazing," he murmured into her hair. "I don't know how you managed to get that van and save us." Sophia pulled away slightly, a small smile on her lips. "I think I've learned a few things in those years on the run, and I couldn't let anything happen to you." Their eyes met, the intensity of the moment palpable. For a brief moment, they forgot the danger, the stress, everything except each other. The moment was broken by the sound of Nathan's phone. It was Daniel. "Nathan, are you all right?" "I got the alert from Sophia." "We're fine, Dan," Nathan replied, his voice hoarse with emotion. "We've got the documents. What do we do now?" "Come to the address I'm sending," Daniel instructed. "I've got a reliable team ready. It's time to end this once and for all." When Nathan hung up, he looked at Sophia and her mother. Despite the tiredness and fear still visible on their faces, there was also a renewed determination. "Let's go get Lucas," Nathan said. "And then let's finish this." As Sophia drove to where Lucas was, Nathan couldn't help but think about how their lives had changed in such a short time. The danger had not yet passed, But for the first time since it all began, he felt real hope that they could not only survive this, but also build something new and beautiful out of the chaos. With the documents safe, Lucas waiting for them, and the promise of justice on the horizon, Nathan, Sophia, and Evelyn prepared for what would, they hoped, be the final chapter of their perilous journey. Blackwood was about to face justice, and they were ready to make sure it happened, no matter the cost. The FBI office in Portland pulsed with a restrained energy when Nathan, Sophia, Evelyn, and Lucas arrived, escorted by Daniel. The agent led them quickly through labyrinthine corridors to a secluded conference room, where a team of select agents awaited them. "These are the best and most reliable agents we have," Daniel explained, closing the door behind them. "Each one has been personally checked by me." Nathan felt the weight of the stares on them, a mixture of curiosity and respect. Sophia, next to him, held the envelope with the documents as if it were a life preserver. "Ladies and gentlemen," Daniel began, his voice laden with authority, "what we are about to discuss does not leave this room. We're dealing with a level of corruption that goes beyond anything we've ever faced." Over the next few minutes, Sophia presented the evidence, her voice gaining strength as she detailed the extent of Blackwood's criminal network. The agents listened attentively, occasionally taking notes or exchanging meaningful glances. "That's impressive," a senior agent commented when Sophia had finished. "With that, we can not only take down Blackwood, but dismantle his entire organization." "The problem," Daniel intervened, "is that Blackwood certainly has allies within the system. We need to act quickly and decisively before he can protect himself." Nathan, who had been watching silently, finally spoke up. "What about the safety of my family, Sophia's? Blackwood has already demonstrated that he will not hesitate to use lethal force." Daniel nodded gravely. "You will be under federal protection from now on, but the best protection will be to put an end to Blackwood once and for all." The next few hours were a whirlwind of planning and preparation. Teams were assigned, warrants were prepared, and a large-scale operation began to take shape. While the agents worked, Nathan found a moment to talk privately with Sophia. They moved away to a corner of the room, their voices low. "Are you okay?" Nathan asked, noticing the tension in her shoulders. Sophia offered a tired smile. "I don't think I'll believe this is really happening until I see Blackwood in handcuffs." Nathan took her hand, intertwining their fingers. "It will happen. And when all this is over—" "When all this is over," Sophia encouraged, her eyes searching his. "I want us to be together," Nathan said softly. "You, me, Lucas, a real family." Sophia's eyes filled with unshed tears. "Nathan, Her reply was interrupted by Daniel, who approached urgently. "We have a problem. Blackwood is preparing to leave the country. We need to act now." The plan was put into action with dizzying speed. FBI teams mobilized throughout the city, simultaneously targeting the main members of Blackwood's organization. Nathan, Sophia, and Evelyn were taken to a secure location, with Lucas under the protection of specialized agents. The wait was agonizing, each minute seeming to stretch into hours. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Daniel entered the room, his face a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. "We did it," he announced. "Blackwood is in custody, along with most of his key associates." The wave of relief that swept through the room was palpable. Sophia fell to her knees, sobs of relief shaking her body. Nathan wrapped his arms around her, his own tears mingling with hers. Evelyn hugged them both, forming a circle of comfort and celebration. "It's over," she murmured. "It really is over." But the battle was not yet completely won. In the days that followed, the extent of Blackwood's corruption was revealed to the public. Politicians were indicted, judges were removed, and a shockwave ran through the justice system. Nathan, Sophia, and their family remained under protection, witnessing the events unfold from afar. It was during this tense waiting period that they really had the chance to process everything that had happened. One night, while Lucas slept and Evelyn rested, Nathan found Sophia on the balcony of the safe house, looking up at the stars. "A penny for your thoughts," he said softly, joining her. Sophia smiled, a genuine smile that lit up her face in a way Nathan had rarely seen. "I'm thinking about possibilities." For the first time in years, I can really think about the future." Nathan pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. "And what do you see in that future?" Sophia looked at him, her eyes shining with hope and something else. "Love. I see you, Lucas. A chance to have the life I always dreamed of, but never believed I could have." Nathan leaned in, capturing her lips in a soft but passionate kiss. When they broke apart, he leaned his forehead against hers. "I love you, Sophia, and I promise we'll build this future together." Epilogue. 1 year later. The summer sun bathed the backyard of Nathan and Sophia's house in Ashland. Laughter filled the air as Lucas ran around with his new friends from school, celebrating his birthday. Sophia, now officially Sophia Hawthorne, watched the scene with a radiant smile, her hand resting protectively on her slightly rounded belly. Nathan approached from behind, enveloping her in a hug. "Happy?" he asked, even though he already knew the answer. "More than I ever thought possible," she replied, turning to kiss him. Evelyn approached, carrying a tray of lemonade. "Cake time, darlings." As the family gathered around the table, Lucas animatedly blowing out his candles, Sophia couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought them here. The fear, the danger, the tears. It had all been worth it for this moment of pure happiness. Blackwood was serving his sentence, his network of corruption dismantled. Sophia had regained her name and her freedom, finding in the process a love and a family she never knew she needed. When everyone raised their glasses in a toast, it wasn't just to celebrate Lucas' birthday. It was a toast to courage, perseverance, and the transformative power of love. It was a toast to second chances and new beginnings. And as the sun set over Ashland, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Sophia knew that, finally, she was home. Not just in one place, but in the people around her. In the family she had found, protected, and finally become part of. The future, once so uncertain and threatening, now shone with promises of happy days to come. And Sophia, Nathan, Lucas, and the baby on the way were ready to embrace every moment of it. Together,